Well, Nick, we talk a lot about good pairings in films, and I think especially when you talk about comedies, you've got your Three Stooges groups, you have your Laurel and Hardys, and I feel like overall, this is something I do too, is I forget about Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. They've done 10 films together.
Yeah.
And they're never really in that conversation of like greatest comedic pairings.
Which
is a real shame.
In 1981, Academy Award-winning writer-director Billy Wilder did a movie with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau called Buddy Buddy. It was such a disaster. It was so bad that Billy Wilder actually quit doing films, and it became toxic for the consequence of it that people thought, well, maybe Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau films are not going to do ever again. And they took a long while to come back. This is the movie that made them come back and show that it's not only workable, but it's definitely bankable.
Yes. And, us being Minnesota natives too, it's near and dear to my heart. I mean, I'm literally wearing a Slippery shirt today. We actually planned a family vacation when I was younger to go to Wabasha and see some of the filming locations.
Right.
My dad had plotted out some of the areas to go check out, and we actually went and saw them. We found the church where they filmed at. We found the hill where they filmed at. We went and did this up in style. So it is a great pleasure.
Before it was cool. Yeah, you guys did it before everybody else started doing it.
So it's a great pleasure to be able to talk about Grumpy Old Men this week, break it down with you, Nick, as we celebrate the first of our 4 weeks of winter-themed movies this week on Kyle and Nick on Film. So stay with us. All right, welcome back to Kyle and Nick on Film. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com, and with me as always,
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, where you can find on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. Today we're going to talk about one of the funniest comedies in the early 90s. Show that even younger people like this movie than the even older people, which is Grumpy Old Men.
Yes, exactly. And I've been watching this film since it came out. It came out when I was 3 years old. So it's become a staple for our family year round even. Which is kind of odd, but definitely in the winter season. Scripted by Mark Steven Johnson, who is actually in college when he wrote this film, which is really funny because we're talking about a 20-something-year-old guy writing a movie about men in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and just being able to accurately display these people because I know these guys.
If you live in Minnesota, you understand. If you don't like somebody, you just ignore them. Or don't. You just almost ghosting is what they call it. You just dissolve. If you really like somebody, you insult them all the time.
Yes, we love the people, and it's kind of like when you get picked on as a child by your crush. It's just that part where it's you show you care by not caring.
Yeah.
And that's true. Yeah. Especially if you get two neighbors. I mean, the film follows John Gustafson, played by Jack Lemmon. Walter Matthau's character is Max Goldman. They've known each other their entire lives. They currently reside pretty much next door to each other, can't stand each other, haven't for decades. And a beautiful new woman arrives in town, a very strange woman, an unusual woman who's not Minnesotan in any way, Ariel.
Yeah, but they do the very Minnesotan thing of when they moved, you got to check in what's in the moving van.
Yeah.
What's with the guy?
So Ariel moves to town, played by Ann-Margret, and these two guys find themselves back to fighting again over another woman. So, I think just from the get-go, these characters very well. They're very well established. And you get to see who they are through their interactions with each other and the way other people look at them.
Yeah, and then the subplot is that John Gustafson is losing his house.
Yep.
And actually, Walter Matthau is kind of a little soft to him about it. He's not. I mean, he actually did the whole alien. No, I don't know, John. And then he continues to insult him as he. No, I don't. Yeah.
Well, it's a great introduction to the characters because that they begrudge each other. But there's also that thing where I don't like him, but I don't want to see extreme harm come to him. I don't want to see him lose his house. The IRS guy.
Remote control.
Yeah, I'm going to pick on him as much as I can. But the IRS guy played by Buck Henry, who usually plays much more likable characters, I find.
Oh, yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Buck Henry, the very famous screenwriter Buck Henry is in it.
Yeah, and he shows up and he's a very unlikable IRS. I mean, he's doing his job, but he's an unlikable character. He's an antagonist in a lot of ways. And I love that, we're introduced to these characters by seeing how far they're willing to go to make each other angry, but not overstep.
Yeah.
And I think that relationship is really strong. I also really like where the characters are with their children. Kevin Pollak and Daryl Hannah play the two children, one of each of them. And they've kind of got this romantic, will they, won't they thing going on.
That other entanglement of, because if they get hooked up, that means they're both going to be related
stuck to each other.
So they're cemented. So there's it's almost sort of every point of, well, I really want them to be happy, but don't marry them.
Yeah. Well, they should be together, but as long as I don't have to. And there's that kind of thing, too, where it's like they do want to see their children happy, even if it does mean this unholiest of unholies that they would actually have to spend more time together.
I want to point out, I've been living in Minnesota almost all my life. Nobody has their yard hose working unless you're making a hockey rink in the backyard.
That's true.
Or you want to prank them and freeze
That's
up
probably the only reason.
The only reason you would. Other than that, you turn off your outside water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think what's funny to me too about this film is the standout performance is neither the people we've mentioned, none of the characters we've mentioned so far. It's Burgess Meredith, who's been famous for decades up to this point, but I think he is the scene stealer of the film as Jack Lemmon's father.
I'm glad you brought him up, Burgess, because every time we, as a kid, you see him, you're like, that's Rocky's manager, or if you go older, well, that's the Penguin from the TV show. Burgess is definitely. At the age where I don't think anybody wrote his lines. I think he just did his own.
And that might be the believability factor of the dialogue. Maybe not all of it is from Mark Steven Johnson. Maybe a lot of it is from Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau and especially Burgess Meredith. I mean, even if you don't watch the movie, watch the end credits with the limited amount of outtakes that Burgess Meredith is able to just rifle off. Yeah. The man is a comedic genius, but he's never been known for that. Until this film.
I'm trying to think of a comedy that would be a staple, but he does have definitely comedy.
He's got that styling to him.
Yeah, it's styling to him. The other one thing I point out is it's very much a plausible story.
Yes.
Even though comedy sometimes goes exaggerated, way over the top, here it seems to always be grounded.
Yeah, and I think part of that is Donald Petrie, he doesn't do these large-scale films. He's very well known. He's done a lot of comedy in his life, but just never anything that's really explosive, big budget kind of stuff. Yeah. He's focused on grounding things a lot of the time. And I think that's one of his strengths as a director is that he doesn't get the, gravitas. He doesn't get the awards consideration, but he does make a very well-constructed and believable film. And even that even works with the kind of the sweet moments, because there are a few near the end where the film kind of sweetens up a little bit and gets a little schmaltzy, but it's believably schmaltzy.
Yeah. Donald Petrie comes from a long line of kind of film royalty. I think his father worked in television ads, commercials, and TV shows. Also, his brother Daniel Petrie Jr., Daniel Petrie being the father, Daniel Petrie Jr. has written remarkable screenplays. So like Beverly Hills Cop, Turner Huge.
Really?
So definitely, if there was some kind of way to get Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau together, you're going to have to find some long lineage of a family network of working in film industry to trust them and make it a good pitch to bring them back.
Yeah. And one thing Petrie does very well in handling the tone is maybe his comedy is successful because there are a lot of emotional moments in the film. The way that he treats the relationship that we're hoping will develop between Gustafson and Ariel, the way that they work with Chuck, who runs the bait shop, and his character arc in the film is extremely emotional at times, and he handles those with respect, and that makes kind of the comedy pieces work well too, because he does ground it in that emotional piece.
Very well,
everyone in town.
I would say for a comedy, it's very well balanced. Mm-hmm. A lot of comedies would just go over the board and joke after joke after joke after joke. But here you have a sensible, plausible, grounded story and a little bit of, not just only, it's going to be sold as a comedy, but it has other features into it.
Yes. I think because the relationships are real, because the characters are well constructed and the tone is capably kept to, the film just feels like very translatable. And I don't know if this affects you guys who don't live in Minnesota maybe, but for us in Minnesota, it's a piece of our history as a state.
Yeah. I'll also mention that this screenplay written by Mark Steven Johnson. Steven Johnson. I had to try again. Went on to do other films in the superhero genre, so he directed Daredevil and ghostwriter as well, writing the screenplays for them. So he's definitely continuing to make movies even after selling this. I think probably sold this script in college.
I think it's weird because he did this film, and of course he wrote the sequel, and then to have him translate to the superhero films in the way that he did, to varying effects. I know that those two films weren't as critically enjoyed as
no, but it makes sense that like Daredevil and Ghost Rider had some kind of comedy in them.
Yep, and there's an emotional beat to them. How successful he is as a director kind of remains to be seen. We don't get a lot from him, but at least his writing skills, I think, are pretty strong. And most notably, he must just have known these people in his life.
I mean, hats off. If you can write comedy,
yeah.
Not only write comedy, but you know that's going to be funny.
Yes, and I think, comedy and horror seem to be the toughest areas to kind of really hit because they're so selective. You may find something funny that I don't find funny. You may find something terrible I don't find frightening at all. And I think that's why those two genres are really tough to crack and really blow over everybody.
Yeah, the old saying of if you love writing, then you're not writing comedy.
Yeah. Happiness is not derived by comedy at all. One other thing I wanted to point out is the Minnesota realism of the film. We compare it a lot of ways to films like Fargo, or I really didn't like this film New in Town. That's from about 2010, 2009, something like that. Okay. Renee Zellweger returns to a Minnesota town, and everybody's just, it's almost over the Fargo limit.
I completely forgot about that.
I just know because there's a lot of like family and friends in my life who thought the movie was fantastic, and I watched it and I was like, it's so caricaturistic that it doesn't feel real. This film derives the comedy from the realism of these guys and knowing these characters and like being able to believe that these two existed. Even Fargo to an extent is like it's heightened, but there is that level of respect given to the people
the exaggeration. The exaggeration.
Whereas this one, the exaggeration only comes from, I think, having two comedy legends working together.
Oh, and having your water turned on outside yard.
Yeah. Exactly. Anything else you want to break down with the film at all?
No, but it has the right ending for it.
I think so too.
Yeah, it has the right ending. And definitely, if you didn't have Burgess Meredith in it, I don't think it would be as the funny.
Yes.
I think he definitely has, and he has the right amount in there. It's very hard to do comedy where you do too little and too much. It has the right amount of him in it.
It's almost like when the film needs him, there's an injection of Burgess. Like he just shows up, says a really great line that kind of lightens the mood up again, and then he just disappears again into the film.
It's almost like he just dissolves back in the corner.
And he too also knows when his character needs to be more serious. There's a great moment when the two guys are fighting, and Matthau's character is going to stab Lemmon with a frozen fish. Like they're at this point in their fight, and he still shows up, drop that fish. I don't want to separate you kids again. Like I think there's a small like serious beat to his comedy in that moment where you believe it. I mean, even Matthau turns to me, he's like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Gustafson." Like he apologizes as if this man is still like, I guess he is still his elder, but he's like not his father figure at this point. So I definitely think these people knew the characters, they knew the writing, and they trusted each other to make something that was really fun.
Yes, you definitely, when you watch this movie, you get a sense that the writer is writing from a little bit of experience. This is definitely something he's witnessed. And we've all witnessed living in Minnesota that the antagonizing driving of your neighbors. And are they really grumpy? I mean, they're definitely old, but are they just...
they're not grumpy towards each other as much.
It's just
I think they're both used to life their way.
Yes.
Lemmon struggles with, he's gotten used to being alone. Matthau, when he's out with Ariel and they're fishing and she puts the fish back and it like blows his mind. He's not used to any outside interference, and that's kind of what you need when you're stuck in a place and you need to move. Is you need an injection of something that's out of this world, different, and I think that's what Ann-Margret really
there
does.
To go, right? Ann-Margret's going to do it. Yeah, I like that. It's a very, that's kind of the theme of the movie, is definitely your inside environment, and you want to almost covet, and even though what you're coveting you don't really like very much, but you still want to covet it and never have any outside influence.
Yeah, and the characters say variations on this quite a few times throughout the film of the only things you regret in life are the risks you didn't take. The things you regret in life are the choices, are like those major choices that you've looked back on. You don't want to have to regret those things. And these are, when you get older, you tend to think about the things that you regret doing in your past and you only really regret the bad decisions because the good ones worked.
But it's almost like they're stuck in their habits. Like he's going to play the lottery, even though he knows fully well it's never going to really happen. In reality, he knows this, but he's going to continue to do it, right? He's not going to break that cycle. The chess game, that's almost like it's never going to end because you're playing a longevity of time of just playing one game where you could just wrap it up and finish, but it's that longevity of just enjoying actually playing it. Rather than wanting to finish.
It's easier to stay in your hovel, you know?
Which is a great metaphor of the chess piece of being the beginning male.
And the fact that he moves his pieces so slowly, so calculated. If Jack Lemmon's character started a war, in 500 years, his great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren would still be fighting it.
Which I'm an avid chess player. That is a move to antagonize your player when you're playing live. Is to, and if you're on a time schedule, is to annoy your player of what, because then you're focused on what I'm doing rather than what you should be doing. It's that old slow move. But he's just making sure that he's not interrupting his preserved state of.
Oh, I'm the same way with Scrabble. Well, there you have it. Our thoughts on Grumpy Old Men. I think, Nick, it's fair to say we both really enjoy this film.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, for me, again, it's a staple of my holidays, of my winter time. I have to go through and watch this film.
It's hard to watch it in the summer because it's in the dead winter and you don't want to...
Yeah, and it's kind of, it's weird. You get this weird feeling watching it because you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be this happy, having this much fun. But that's kind of what the holidays can do for us, and it's not one of those films that I think outside of Minnesota, I don't think it's as talked about as inside Minnesota.
I agree.
But it's got some of the best comedic performances, I think, of my life, the ones that I really enjoy to watch. And a little bit of heart, too, which really helps to hit those comedy beats home when they do happen, is because you do care. Nick, recommendation from you, I suppose.
It's a high recommendation. It's hard to recommend a comedy that's a little bit grounded. There's no big explosions, there's no gags, but it's actually a cemented, plausible comedy.
Yes, exactly. And one that we both have to go back to over and over again. It was a real joy to actually break it down with you, too, because I get the sensation that sometimes some of our episodes go a little dark. We talk about a lot of murder episodes. We talk about a lot of sad endings and stuff like that. And it's kind of nice to be like, Joy, I've missed you.
It's a palate cleanser.
Exactly. So we want to know your thoughts, especially if you aren't from Minnesota. I'm very curious to see if this is a film that's even been on your radar, or if you kind of have the same reverence for it that we have. Yeah. Let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because I think we get a little bit of like cabin fever with the film, where it circulates for us way more than it does for people outside the state. Yeah. Don't forget to drop a like too. We really do appreciate your likes. It helps other people find the show and be able to get involved with it. If you want to get more of our episodes, we're doing tons of new things with Kyle and Nick on Film here, so go ahead and click that subscribe button too, and you can get our new episodes every time they air. I love Monday mornings when I get that little ting that says a new episode's arrived. Right. Even though I know we talked about it already. What else is there? I guess you could check out the Patreon.
Please do.
Yeah, patreon.com/Kyle and Nick on Film. We've got an exclusive show starting up on Patreon, Movie Picks with Kyle and Nick, and we're going to be breaking down some of our picks of different questions, breaking down what our favorite films are, maybe some of our least favorite films too, and just kind of having some fun with it, getting some behind the scenes time.
Yeah, if you join the Patreon, you can listen to us talk about.
Yeah, talking about, you're gonna find out. You'll find out when you check it out. So thank you very much, guys. Once again, my name is Kyle Goethe from GoetheFilmReviews.com.
Yes, and I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, which you can find on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and now Amazon Radio.
We'll see you putzes later.